Bonjour tout le monde. Le Canada a participé cette semaine au sommet des leaders nord-américains ici à la ville de Mexico. J'ai aussi eu des rencontres bilatérales productives avec notre hôte, le président López Obrador, avec le président Biden. On a fait avancer nos priorités communes, comme la croissance économique, que ce soit de renforcer nos chaînes d'approvisionnement ou de créer des bons emplois pour la classe moyenne, plus l'Amérique du Nord est compétitive et prospère, plus les entreprises et les travailleurs canadiens en bénéficient. Since President Biden took office, we've made a lot of progress together on our shared priorities. Our work continues this week, and it will continue in March, when we'll host President Biden in Canada. Here in Mexico City, he and I talked about many important issues, including borders and transportation. Yesterday, we announced a new process that will restore Nexus traveler cards. The new process will reduce wait times and address backlogs. The Nexus program generates billions in economic activity and supports local communities on both sides of the border. Making sure this process is as efficient as possible is beneficial to both Canada and the United States. President Biden and I also talked about security issues around the world. On sait qu'on a un rôle important à jouer pour protéger la sécurité et la stabilité mondiale. On a discuté de la crise actuelle en Haïti et de notre engagement à favoriser des solutions dirigées par les Haïtiens et à continuer d'aider Haïti et son peuple. We also denounced the Iranian regime's continued attacks on the brave women, students, and people of Iran who want to live their lives free from persecution. President Biden and I also discussed Putin's brutal invasion of Ukraine. We continue to be there to support Ukrainians as they defend themselves. Yesterday, we announced that Canada is purchasing a National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System from the United States to donate to Ukraine. This military aid will help Ukraine strengthen its air defense systems and protect civilians. Russia's war is tragic and devastating for Ukraine. And it also has impacts around the world on energy and food security, as well as on supply chains. With President López Obrador and with President Biden, we all agree that it's essential to continue working together as reliable partners to strengthen our supply chains. This week, I also had many meetings with CEOs and business leaders from Mexico and the United States. I made it clear that Canada is a great place to invest. We have critical and valuable resources. We have the stability that makes us a reliable partner. And we have a skilled, educated, and ambitious workforce. Canada is rapidly becoming the reliable energy and tax supplier the net zero world will need. Business leaders and partners are noticing. For example, Canada has gone up from 5th in the world to 2nd when it comes to the battery supply chain. Critical minerals are essential to build batteries and electric vehicles, but also laptops, smartphones, and the semiconductors that they need. With Mexico and the United States this week, we launched the North American Alliance for Semiconductor Supply Resilience. This will help our governments work with industry to identify opportunities, increase investment, and strengthen and expand semiconductor supply chains within North America. This continent should and will be at the forefront of global innovation and sustainability, and more collaboration will continue to be the key to our success. Pendant qu'on continue notre travail pour faire croître l'économie, on s'assure aussi que les gens sont au centre de cette croissance. C'est important de s'assurer que personne ne soit laissé pour compte. Cette semaine, on a réitéré que nos 3 pays doivent continuer leurs efforts pour éliminer la discrimination et le racisme systémique, parce que chaque personne mérite d'avoir une chance réelle et équitable de réussir. With President López Obrador, we created the Canada-Mexico Action Plan. This is our shared vision to build more prosperous, sustainable, safe, and equitable societies. The plan includes initiatives to advance gender equality and women's rights. We're also modernizing cooperation between our 2 countries on Indigenous issues. Our countries signed a memorandum of understanding that will move us both forward on reconciliation and the empowerment of Indigenous peoples. Whether it's growing the economy and making sure no one is left behind, creating good jobs for the middle class, protecting our environment, strengthening our supply chains, empowering people, or standing up for democracy, Canada will always step up and partner with Mexico and the United States. Je veux remercier encore une fois le Mexique et le président López Obrador de nous avoir reçus pour cet important sommet cette semaine. J'ai bien hâte de poursuivre notre collaboration dans les mois et les années à venir pour bâtir un meilleur avenir pour l'Amérique du Nord et pour les Canadiens. Merci tout le monde, j'ai bien hâte de prendre vos questions.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Premier ministre. On va commencer la période de questions pour 20 minutes. One question, one follow-up, 20 minutes of questions, starting with the first reporter from the Globe and Mail.
Hi, it's Steve Chase here. Thanks for taking the questions. I want to ask you about Haiti. I want to follow up. There's been an expectation for months now that Canada might lead a military mission to Haiti. And my question for you is, given all our other commitments in the world, Latvia, Operation Reassurance, the rapid response required from NATO, our increased deployments in the Indo-Pacific, has Canada run out of soldiers to supply a mission to Haiti? And the second question, or the additional question is, what exactly has the United States asked of you with respect to Haiti? Could you please be clear on that?
Canada has long been a friend to the people of Haiti, and we will continue to be. For the past 3 decades, we have engaged in Haiti in many different ways, in many different situations, with military support, with police support, with a range of supports, and we will continue to be there for the people of Haiti. What is particularly important in this situation is that the Haitian people themselves be at the center of the support, the building of stability, and the resolution of the crisis in Haiti right now, which is why our focus and how we have already stepped up significantly is on assisting in doing just that. First of all, with sanctions that have caused real response from the country's elites in terms of allowing for greater stability, but we know there's more to do, and that was certainly something that we talked about with the United States and continue to talk about with other partners on increasing the sanctions on the Haitian elites. We've also stepped up in our direct support for the Haitian National Police. We know that they have to be at the center of solving the security issues and restoring stability to the country. So we will be there and continue to be there for that. We've been shipping equipment. We've been working closely on opportunities to work with them, and we will continue to. Right now, that process and that kind of support we're giving is making a difference on the ground. We're all very aware that things could get worse in Haiti, and that's why Canada and partners, including the United States, are preparing various scenarios if it does start to get worse. But we also know that right now, what is effective is empowerment of the Haitian National Police to solve the situation themselves and support for the Haitian people through humanitarian support and others, while at the same time we're holding the political class and the economic class to account. That's what we will continue to do, but we are always ready to do more if it becomes necessary. In regards to our conversations with the United States, it's been centered around making sure that what was called for in the UN resolution in September actually happens. That is, the sustained free flow of food, water, medicines, and fuel to the Haitian people. That's what Canada's efforts to date have been helping in resolve, and that's what we're going to continue to focus on, and that's certainly what the United States and others is continuing to look to Canada to be leading on as we are.
En français?
In French as well, please.
La situation en Haïti est désolante et c'est pour ça que le Canada, comme on l'a été depuis des décennies, va continuer d'être là pour le peuple haïtien. Mais on sait que toutes les interventions étrangères
au fil des dernières décennies, n'ont pas pu prévenir qu'on en arrive à cette situation déplorable actuellement. Donc, nous devons d'avoir une approche différente. Et l'approche que le Canada est en train de prendre avec l'appui et en travaillant avec d'autres, mais le Canada est en train de l'idée là-dessus, c'est de mettre des sanctions extrêmement fortes sur les élites haïtiennes qui sont responsables de beaucoup de la violence et l'instabilité politique et sociale qui dure depuis trop longtemps en Haïti, mais aussi de travailler sur la gouvernance avec les partis d'opposition et le gouvernement, mais aussi, surtout, de travailler pour renforcer la police nationale haïtienne pour que eux-mêmes, les Haïtiens, puissent remettre la situation déstabilisée en situation de sécurité. C'est pour ça que nous allons continuer notre travail pour aider et appuyer ceux qui font ce travail sur le terrain. Mais nous savons tous qu'il y a toujours une possibilité que ça s'améliore, mais aussi des possibilités que ça dégringole, que la situation s'empire. Et à ce niveau-là, on est en train de discuter avec nos partenaires dans les Caraïbes, mais aussi les États-Unis et d'autres, sur quel genre de scénario et quel genre d'intervention pourrait un jour être nécessaire. Mais nous espérons que le travail qu'on est en train de faire avec des sanctions, avec de l'appui pour la police nationale haïtienne, avec de l'aide humanitaire, avec des pressions politiques, va continuer d'améliorer petit à petit une meilleure situation dans cette situation tragique.
Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister. Thanks for doing this. We wanted to put this question to the U.S. President yesterday, but David was thwarted by what we'll call technical issues. But the President, when he speaks to a domestic audience, he speaks obviously a lot about U.S. protectionism, but when he gets into these sorts of international fora, that messaging goes away and we hear about friends, partners, and allies. I'm wondering if 2 years into his mandate, and I appreciate that I'm asking you to kind of pinch hit for him here, but do you have a sense of how it is that the U.S. squares these two perspectives, one domestically being end-to-end U.S. supply chains, and then internationally talking about working with other countries? And as a follow-up, do you have a sense that perhaps now that he's been in office for a couple of years, that maybe that is beginning to taper off a little bit, that maybe some of the messaging from you, from Mexico, from others is starting to get through? Where are we on that at this point?
I actually suggest and agree with President Biden that there is no contradiction between looking out for the well-being of workers in your own country and working closely with friends and allies like Mexico and Canada. Certainly, that's what we're doing as a country. We're ensuring that, yes, we are sticking up for Canadian jobs and creating Canadian industry and taking advantage of the tremendous opportunities that Canada has to succeed in international trade and international markets. And we're doing it by leveraging the incredible advantages we have on the continent. That's exactly what President Biden has been focused on. And to be even more direct about it, if there actually was a contradiction between sticking up for America first and working with your friends, the previous president would have succeeded in scrapping NAFTA. But he didn't, because we worked very hard alongside American labor and business and partners in Mexico and across Canada to demonstrate that working with partners and close allies like Canadians and Mexicans actually creates jobs and prosperity for the American middle class, creates opportunities for us all. And that's what this particular gathering has been entirely focused on, understanding that the three of us working together are an extraordinarily competitive continent that can take on the world and take on the challenges caused by the shifting geopolitics around the world, whether it be China or Russia and other places, and thrive while ensuring prosperity for our citizens as well. So, as politicians, we will We will put the emphasis in different places depending on where and to whom we are speaking. But the fundamental truths that we all do better when we work together, and that our own citizens do better when we work together, is something that has become ever more clear over the past years and has certainly been at the center of our discussions today.
Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister. Brian Platt with Bloomberg. I just had a question about a couple of trade issues. On Mexico's energy policy, which we know Canada and the U.S. oppose, could you tell us what kind of conversation you had about that today and yesterday? How hard did you push back on it, and what did you hear in response? And secondly, on semiconductors, you talk about the collaboration that's needed in this industry, but the U.S. has also brought in massive incentives on it. So are you looking at passing Canadian incentives to encourage that industry to build up in Canada as well?
First of all, on energy reforms, as you heard President López Obrador speak at the beginning of our expanded bilat today, this was an issue that we had very direct conversations about. It's a follow-up on the conversations I had with him last year when we were in Washington, where I highlighted the fact that significant Canadian investment in renewable energy in Mexico was a good thing. A good thing for the Mexican economy, a good thing for the environment here and around the world, and we wanted to make sure that that continued. He was, of course, very receptive to the good work that Canadian companies and Canadians in general are doing in terms of fighting climate change and protecting the environment, and pledged to continue to work very closely with us to ensure that we're able to move forward in a way that is beneficial, obviously, for Mexico, but also for the planet and for Canadian investors. There will always be challenges, even between friends, when we're talking about big investments and making the kinds of transformative changes that we're going to need to fight climate change. But our ability to work through those, our ability to resolve disputes, is always going to depend on how we engage in positive, constructive ways, and how we know that we're not looking for win-lose scenarios, but win-win-wins. That's what NAFTA is, and that's what we do across this continent can and should be. In regards to semiconductors, the world has realized that an over-reliance on any one region for semiconductors will have dire consequences on the economy that we're building for the future. Canada has a significant role to play in the semiconductor industry. What exactly that role is still somewhat to be determined. We have one of the largest semiconductor assembly plants in North America in Bromont, Quebec. And when we say assembly or packaging, it's actually putting the chips together so that they can function in the best possible way. So it involves a lot of R&D and involves a lot of advances. We also have critical minerals industry developing that's going to be a source of what is needed to build those semiconductors. Our focus is on making sure that Canada and Canadians are a part of this semiconductor ecosystem. What part gets built here and what happens there. I think we've demonstrated through the auto industry that as we build integrated ecosystems where parts can flow back and forth, where different people do different things, there's room for all of us to benefit, especially as the world increasingly will turn to North America as a reliable supplier of high quality, environmentally responsible, properly labor standards produced high-tech goods in the future. And Canada will always have a big piece of that. Au niveau des investissements en énergie, on a eu des conversations très directes avec le président López Obrador, des conversations qui ont commencé d'ailleurs l'année passée quand on a qu'on a soulevé nos préoccupations sur les investissements énergétiques, particulièrement dans les renouvelables, qu'on est en train de voir des compagnies et des fonds canadiens investir ici au Mexique. On a souligné que c'est important, oui, de protéger des emplois et l'économie mexicaine, mais c'est aussi important de protéger l'environnement et d'assurer un bon partenariat avec des investisseurs étrangers, particulièrement des investisseurs canadiens. Le président López Obrador a été très ouvert à rencontrer différentes compagnies, à travailler avec nos ministres et nos fonctionnaires pour s'assurer que nous sommes en train de régler ces petits différends. Il va toujours avoir des enjeux sur lesquels on va devoir travailler en tant que grandes économies qui travaillent ensemble, mais notre capacité de chercher des solutions gagnant-gagnant et pas de vouloir gagner pour faire perdre l'autre, caractérise nos relations et me donne énormément d'optimisme qu'on va pouvoir régler ces préoccupations.
Next question.
Janice McGregor from CBC News. The Mexican president is your second trade skeptic populist that you've had to deal with and defend Canadian trade interests. Wondering if there was anything at all from your talks, from the push by President Biden, that has moved the sticks even a little when it comes to things like GMO corn or the energy discrimination against foreign investors that we're talking about. Did you get any progress with this guy, or are these things moving to lawyers and NAFTA dispute panels?
Actually, Janice, I disagree with your characterization of President López Obrador as a trade skeptic. The conversations we had over the past few days were very much focused on the opportunity a more integrated North American trading system will have in leveraging our advantages in taking on the world, in replacing other sources of manufactured goods or minerals from around the world that are obviously becoming less reliable. He has been extremely positive about the increase in trade that we've seen over the past years between Mexico and Canada and across the continent. He's been extremely enthusiastic about the increase in Canadian investment in Mexico. Yes, there are always going to be issues that we need to work through, but I am optimistic about the response that he gave and the commitments that we've seen to work constructively with Canadian companies, with Canadian investors to benefit, of course, the Mexican economy, but also our three countries. He spoke repeatedly very, very highly about Canadian investments in the country, and we're looking at doing more together.
Next question.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Premier ministre, Christian Noël de Radio-Canada. Je vous amène un peu au pays. On ne vous a pas encore entendu parler à propos des révélations concernant les contrats chez McKinsey et l'abondance de contrats qui semblent avoir été accordés à cette firme-là en particulier et le fait qu'on vraiment semble du côté du gouvernement, peut-être que vous allez être en désaccord, davantage faire affaire avec ces firmes-là. Est-ce que le gouvernement fait trop affaire avec ces firmes-là? Et à propos de McKinsey en particulier, avez-vous l'impression que vous avez peut-être un peu dépassé les bornes?
J'ai demandé au ministre Jasek et à la ministre Fortier de faire un suivi là-dessus, de regarder attentivement les chiffres et regarder les circonstances qu'on apprend dans les nouvelles. Ça fait depuis toujours que des fonctionnaires cherchent des conseils experts pour améliorer la livraison de services pour les Canadiens, pour faire la modernisation de ce qu'ils sont en train de faire. Mais nous allons faire un suivi pour nous assurer effectivement que ça a été fait de la bonne façon ou si on a besoin de modifier ou de changer les règles.
Last question.
Judy Chern with CTV News. I would like to know how you give your analysis of whether or not you found this conference successful in the sense of critical minerals. Canada has a strategy, you pitched it hard, but all we have is a commitment by 3 countries to map, which Canada already knows where our critical minerals are. You didn't get an agreement to invest in processing. Do you view that as a setback?
On the contrary. The reception that we've seen from Canada's critical minerals strategy, which we launched just a few weeks ago, has been overwhelmingly positive. The United States, Mexico, and partners around the world have become increasingly concerned about the reliance that we all have on unreliable suppliers of some of the essential ingredients in our greener technological future. Canada being a core and reliable supplier, not just of ores and minerals themselves, but of processed and manufactured products from those ores, whether it be electric batteries, whether it be advanced technologies, things that go into semiconductors. These are the kinds of reliable partnerships that the world is looking for. In North America and in our conversations at this North American Leaders Summit, there's been a tremendous emphasis on all the advantages we have that we can develop together. Obviously, Canada's mineral resources and natural resources are going to be an extraordinary advantage for the North American continent, but so will Canadian workers. So will Canadian innovators and scientists and researchers and engineers who are transforming those minerals in cleaner, greener ways into the products that we rely on across the continent and around the world. So the enthusiasm and the opportunity, not just for our economies to prosper, but for Canadian workers in the natural resource sector, in the manufacturing sector, to know that there are good jobs for them, even in the energy sector, good jobs for them, not just for the coming years, but for the coming decades and for their kids, is what the critical minerals strategy is all about, and the positive reception of that and the enthusiasm that we're seeing from our partners is a very good sign.
But at this point, there's nothing done on paper that you can point to. When you talk about shifting geopolitical atmosphere, you met, for example, with the chairman of Group Bimbo, which has which pulled out its operations from Russia. And so I'm wondering, when you're meeting with these CEOs in that type of context, you're obviously presenting Canada as a potential spot to shift their investments. Did any of that occur in terms of some type of commitment or agreement in which they want to shift? And I guess that's what I'm looking for, not something airy-fairy about what could be good for us in the future for my kids.
I will highlight that when we have great announcements to make, we make them. When I was at Ingersoll talking about the fact that GM is assuring the future of the Kami plant for decades to come, with the first electric vehicle, commercial electric van produced entirely in Canada. That was an announcement we made that was based on conversations with everyone from Mary Barra to the local GM leaders to partners in there that were not released publicly at the time, but culminated in the right kind of announcement for Canadians. When I was standing there at ArcelorMittal, talking about the fact that this global steel giant was choosing the Dofasco plant in Hamilton as the first place they were making the transformation of their steel away from coal-fired steel plants to electric arc, that was the result of months or even years of conversations to get to that point. So the conversations I've been having with CEOs, with other leaders at this summit are all about ensuring that future for workers across the country. And I am just as excited as you are about the announcements we're going to be able to make in the coming months and years as they land. But every step of the way, we're focused on delivering those opportunities for Canadians. 7 years ago, when I first got elected, we were talking a lot about the fact that climate change was filled with challenges for Canadians. But we also talked about the opportunities. Well, we're finally starting to really see and feel in investments across the country where those opportunities are landing. And it takes time to shift and to build the future in the right way. But that's what these conversations are about, and that's the optimism that Canadians are beginning to share about the future that we're building for communities right across the country.
Merci beaucoup. C'est ce qui m'a fait la conférence de presse du Canada. This is what concludes Canada's press conference.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you very much.